Okay. Because of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Cindy Green with Texas Parent to Parent. I would like to thank our conference sponsors. So I'm just going to read them out, and then I'm going to show you a short video, and then I'll get it turned over to Denise. We'd like to thank AmeriGroup, Superior Health Plan, CDS in Texas, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Infinity Pharmacy Specialty Services, ProBed Medical, and Texas Able Program. So we really appreciate them sticking along with us as we take everything virtually. So with that said, everybody, you are on mute. If during the presentation, if you have a question, please raise your hand, or you can put questions in the chat box. Denise will get to them throughout the session if she can. Otherwise, we'll get to them at the end. Anybody just joining, if you can go to the bottom of your screen where it says interpretation, it's the world symbol. If you can click on English or Spanish, that will switch you to whichever side you want. Okay, and with that, I am going to turn it over to you, Denise, and I need to real quick give you permission to share your screens. Give me 2 seconds.
You ready for me to start? Okay. Hi, everybody. I see a couple of photographs. I don't see anybody. I just see a lot of names. Thanks very much to everybody for being on the call. I'm here to talk to you about personal networks, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up a PowerPoint video, and you'll be hearing my voice, but I'm going to go ahead and move us through the video. If I don't know, I guess the best way, since the video is going to be up, Cindy, is people would send you a chat message if they have a question, I suppose, because I won't be able to see people raising their hands or asking their questions. Okay.
I'm here for you. Gotcha.
Okay, so we're going to do the best we can do. And I suspect this is probably mostly parents who are on the call today. I don't know if we have any self-advocates here or siblings or grandparents, but this is directed to all of you. I'm going to go ahead and get us into the screen now. Okay, Cindy, is the screen up? Okay, good, thank you. So we're going to talk about personal networks. And I promise I do not read slides for the most part. I really do like these presentations to be interactive as much as possible, and we'll see if we can make that happen via Zoom. But I do want to go ahead and read these questions from the slide. And as I read them, I do encourage all of you to ask yourselves whether or not you have ever asked yourself some of these questions yourself. How are we as parents going to make sure that our son or daughter with a disability has a good life, both now and after we die? Who will make sure that the plans that we have arranged and the services we have secured are implemented and functioning well after we are gone? How are we going to make sure that our children are not lonely, isolated, or neglected? How do we give caring friends and families an opportunity to have a fulfilling relationship with our children? And last, how am I, a person with a disability, going to achieve these goals for myself? Well, I would argue that one answer to all of these questions is that you're probably not going to do it on your own. This is a photograph of my son Maverick's network. It is called MavMen, and MavMen was founded in 2010. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in March. What we're going to talk about today during this presentation is an explanation of what a personal network is, talk briefly about the history of networks. I'll tell you about the Texas Network Connections program at Texas Parent to Parent. And at the end of this presentation, Cindy will talk to you also about some of the work that's happening at the Transition Center at Central Texas that involves helping families set up networks. We'll briefly talk about the key components of networks. During this presentation, you're going to see a lot of photographs of networks in action with the year that the network was started. I'm hoping that is going to, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I really do hope that that's going to shed a lot of light on what the network model and concept is all about. And then also we'll talk about how to start a network for yourself or for your son or daughter. Okay. Oh, I'm having a little problem here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So what is a personal network? First of all, this is a photograph of Lucas's lineup. And this is the youngest network that we have ever started here at Texas Parent to Parent. That is Lucas sitting on his grandmother Nancy's lap. And we started Lucas's network when he was 5 years old. He had just had his 5th birthday. It was very exciting. A personal network is an intentional community of friends, family members, and acquaintances who can assist and collaborate with a person at risk of isolation and his family. And in this case, at risk of isolation by virtue of disability. Personal networks promote planning and social opportunities. They assist the person at the center with decision-making and with goal setting, and can also work with the person at the center to be a sustainable resource after the parents are no longer available to assist. So I think that we're going to go ahead with Zoom. Technology is getting better and better. And usually I just have this link for you all to watch the video yourself. It's a short 6-minute video, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. And I think Cindy's going to be able to show this video to you all now. So we'll give it a try.
The biggest fear for parents of children with disabilities is what happens when I die. We all worry so much there'll be no one there to really oversee, to advocate, to fight for, and to care in that way. We all build networks informally through life, but sometimes a person with a disability has a hard time building their own community. And so this is the intention of working toward building that community.
We realized that it was really hard for us to figure everything out on our own.
Having a child with a disability is tough in itself, but planning everything that's supposed to happen with her and to her is overwhelming sometimes.
We're wired for connection as humans, and I worry about his ability to get out there in the world and have enough people around him of his own choosing.
Because parents are by and large doing it all themselves, that means that the kids are around their parents an awful lot. Now that Maverick is 18, he does not want to be around his parents all the time. And I don't think he wants us to be setting up a system where he has to feel like he can't live without us.
A personal network is like an extended family. It's a little group of people who commit to being involved with that person and caring about their quality of life.
I like to call a network a project, because you think of a project as something that you're not really quite sure where it's going to go, and it's something that we're all working on together, and we're figuring stuff out together.
As Brenna turned 18, we had to start worrying about Social Security and Medicaid. So we started a network of friends and family members, friends that have known Brenna for a long time, most of her life actually.
It was a big leap of faith for me and Steve to make that first step to invite people into our lives to be thinking about Maverick in a meaningful way.
The hardest thing about starting a network is the courage to ask other people to help. In our society, nobody wants to think they can't take care of everything in their own life.
Starting a network for us was pretty hard, especially more so for my husband than myself, because he did not want to ask people for help or to take their time with us or to even learn all the things that they needed to learn about Brenna in order to help her later on in life.
It took me a couple of years to get to where I was going to do that ask of inviting people to come into our home to help. That was terrifying.
I think what we all have in common is that tension as a parent between wanting to help and letting go.
Who would we talk to? I mean, trying to figure out what friend would be best. Would they say yes? Would they say no?
You have to prepare for the possibility that someone will say no. And if they say no, you don't take it personally. You say, oh, they're too busy right now, but maybe they'll find another way to be in my child's life.
Over the course of the last several years, the conversation has become a little heavier. We've started to have conversations about what happens when parents aren't here anymore.
We want to make sure she has a network of friends and family that know all about her, knows her likes and dislikes, knows about her medical history, knows about her financial situation. So if something were to happen to us, they can pick up and take care of Brenna for us when we're gone.
You think this is such a big imposition, why would anybody want to join a network? But they discover that they gain so much from being in a network. They learn about that person at the center. They become friends with the other people in the network. It gives them a sense of purpose, of commitment. It comes from the heart, and so they know that they're doing something so worthwhile, that they're working for this person's quality of life.
This is part of our network, the Trabolsi family. They're our next-door neighbors.
When they told us what the personal network was and asked us to be a part of it, we immediately said yes.
We've been learning about lots of different aspects of your life, Maverick, right? And all the different components, from healthcare to school to, wheelchairs and equipment.
It's been a really easy, natural way to deepen relationships with people that we already had relationships with.
What I've said and continue to believe is that it's really about how to build community and be together.
So a personal network is a tool, a method of really replacing that deep care that a parent has.
Knowing that we have a network in place, that she has a job, that she's happy, that part of things that we've planned out are going very well.
Maverick's 18 now, and when I think about a network, and when I think about Maverick's good life, I always think about this picture of these old men who are just friends and living their lives together, and that's what I see. That's what I see for Maverick. That's what makes me really hopeful.
So this is a win-win. It's really good for the person at the center. It brings peace of mind and support for the family, and it creates a new avenue of fun, of commitment, of joy for the members of the network. Go to the Texas Parent to Parent website, click on Pathways to Adulthood, and find tools, ideas, links, concepts to help you plan for a good life for your child after graduation.
Did it. Okay. Now
That
go back to sharing your screen.
Amazing. That was amazing. Does anybody have any observations about what they just saw? And I believe if you have some, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Is that correct, Cindy?
They can raise their hand and I'll unmute them if they do.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna share. Okay, here's Crystal. She has something maybe, or no? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen and we'll keep going. All righty. So, history of personal networks. The network model started, okay, Cindy, you can hear me all right, right? Okay. The network model started in Vancouver, British Columbia, back in the 1980s, mid-1980s, and they have really good services for people with disabilities in Canada. They have national health care, excellent services, but you still had these parents who were in their 60s and 70s who just started worrying about what their sons and daughters' lives were going to look like after the parents were gone or no longer able to be involved in their support and care. So they developed this model of personal networks and started this organization called PLAN, which stands for Planned Lifetime Advocacy Network. And early on, they wrote a book called A Good Life, which you can get at their website, which I do believe is plan.ca. You can get electronic copies of it. I believe you can still get hard copies of it. And they have put out some more recent publications as well. But they were the organization that Texas Parent to Parent modeled its work on networks after. So in 2016, Texas Parent to Parent launched the Texas Network Connections program at Texas Parent to Parent. And we, our tagline is creating community for people with disabilities. And the services that we now offer through Texas Network Connections is network facilitation services, where we actually have trained facilitators who can come and work with you and your family to set up a network for yourself or for your son or your daughter. More recently, we have started working with families in Central Texas area to help them set up a network on their own. And we have a manual that is available on our website. And I think we have a link to it at the end of this PowerPoint. If you are interested in doing it yourself, The third thing that we offer is do-it-yourself workshops and tags. We will work with groups of families, a minimum of 5 families, and we will work with them over a period of time to help them set up networks in collaboration with one another for their sons or daughters. I imagine there's probably people on this call from around the state. Am I correct, Cindy? Yeah, and so I love talking to people about networks. If you have a nonprofit in your local area that you think the parents that you serve would be interested in learning more about personal networks, you can let Cindy know, and we can go ahead and via Zoom do a presentation. I would be delighted to do that. And then finally, at the end of this presentation, I do believe that Cindy's going to talk to you a little bit more about the Texas Parent-to-Parent Transition Center of Central Texas. She'll talk to you about it broadly, but then also in particular about the work that we do with personal networks through the center. Okay, so this is a photograph of Just for Jacqueline. The Just for Jacqueline network was founded back in 2014. And these are all the ladies in the network, all gathered together for a photograph. This one's exciting. This is another network called the Gift Keepers. And we're really excited at Parent to Parent about the Gift Keepers because they, the parents attended one of our workshops that we had on networks at the Parent-to-Parent state conference back in 2018, and they came to the workshop and liked the material so much that they started a network themselves for their son Kalen, and it is called the Gift Keepers, and we look forward to seeing how that is progressing in the years to come. Here's another network. This is a photograph of people in Alana's Rose Garden. The acronym is ERG, which Alana's mom thought was pretty appropriate for sometimes navigating the world of disability services can be pretty frustrating, and she thought that was an apt name. But anyway, the network was founded in 2015, and it's going strong. We just had a Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago for Alana's Rose Garden, and this one was really interesting because Alana wanted to see everybody in her network, and most network activities are happening via Zoom, obviously, during the last 6 months, but she really wanted a chance to see everybody, so we had a drive-through network meeting, just a network social, and people drove through past the garage, one car after another, and got to pay a little visit with the family and say hello to Alana. I think that if one thing that you will find is that networks can get quite creative when they need to be. Here's another photograph. This is a photograph of Sophie with her friend Terry, who is in her network, which is called Snapshots. This one was founded in 2014, and in July, the network just celebrated its 6-year birthday of the network. And it's called, like I said, it's called Snapshots, which is an acronym for Sophie's Network and Party. But the reason we like the name Snapshots is because Sophie loves her photographs. She loves her snapshots, and you will see that she is sharing her beloved photographs, a big stack of them, with her friend Terry. There's 5 key components of networks, and these were the ones that if you do read the copy of A Good Life, you will see that these components were developed by the folks at Plan up in Canada, and we at Texas Parent to Parent subscribe to these components as well. The first and most important component of all networks is that relationships are the key to a good life, and they are the foundation of networks. And one thing that we find when we start networks with families is families have all kinds of goals that they want to accomplish and that they want network members to help them with. All sorts of goals they may have, but first and foremost, always, the most important piece of networks is to be in relationship with one another. The component number 2 is that no disability precludes relationship. Everybody, regardless of their disability, regardless of the diagnosis or the involvement of the disability, everybody wants to be in relationship with each other. Number 3 is that the successful networks are directed by individuals and or families. And this one is important because, as I'm sure many of you have figured out, most of the people that are in relationship with our sons and daughters are in relationship with them because they're paid to be, whether it be attendants or nurses or doctors or therapists, teachers. Most of them are paid to be in relationship with our kids. And a network is, all network members are volunteers. Number 4 is networks focus on contribution. This is another contradiction to a lot of ideas that cultures have about disability, namely that people who have disabilities don't have a contribution to make to the world. And networks contradict this assumption. Everybody has a contribution to make to the world. And finally, everybody benefits from being in a network. You may find that some people, when they join a network, maybe they're joining because they feel like they want to be supportive, or they feel like they want to give something to the person at the center. But I would say that every network that I facilitate, after it's been meeting for a couple years, everybody, the first thing that they say is that the first thing that every network member reports is they get so much from being in the network. So we're going to talk next a little bit about starting a network. This is the Naruto Network, and it was founded in Fort Worth in 2018. And the person at the center, Jake, he is really into anime and Comcast and all of that anime kind of stuff. And so he wanted this to be the name of the network, and everybody voted on that, and it was selected. Of course, for most of us, nobody had any idea how to pronounce the network, and so the first action item for all network members was to learn how to pronounce it. Naruto Network. I hope I have it correct. So let me go back to, so Jake's network, this one started, I was approached by the family because Jake was getting ready to graduate out of the school district. And I think he was 21, and he was going to be leaving at 21. And that's when we usually get approached by most families, is when their sons or daughters are getting ready to leave the school district, and all of a sudden they're worried about what is going to, what their sons and daughters are going to do when they're not in high school anymore. But as you learned from Lucas and Lucas's lineup, some people are starting really young with networks. And one thing that I think, I have people ask me a lot, when's the best time to start a network? And I've always said anytime is the best time to start a network. But one thing that I would say with Lucas's network starting at 5 years old is that by the time Lucas is a teenager, he's going to be so used to having this supportive group of people in his life that he's going to be really comfortable with the network concept. One thing I do find, especially with people who are in their teens or their early 20s, it's a big challenge for them all of a sudden to be inviting people into their life to learn more about them. And even that's true with my son Maverick. He was 14 when we started Mav Men, and I think it was really embarrassing for him to have people be learning a little bit more about his disability. And so we've had to work around some of those barriers that made him uncomfortable, to figure out a way to facilitate his comfort during network meetings. So there's 3 phases of network development. There's invitation, development, and maintenance. Invitation, obviously, the network is about people. Well, you've got to invite people to join the network. The next part is development, and you have to, at the beginning, during the development phase of networks, we have a invitation meeting where you invite people who you would like to join the network. You invite them to a little reception and tell them a little bit more about what a network is, and follow up with an email to ask them whether or not they want to join the network. And then after that, you start having network meetings. And then the third phase of networks is maintenance. Maintenance is that a network is going to last during the course of the person at the center's life. And how are we going to ensure that that network does in fact have staying power, and it does keep meeting for the person at the center. So phase 1 is invitation. And these are some more shots of people in my son Maverick's network, Mav Men. I love this photo. So let me go back here a little bit. So invitation. Who do I invite to join a network? There's various people that you can invite, and obviously immediate and extended family, brothers, sisters, parents, extended family, grandparents, cousins, in-laws, people, neighbors. You saw in the video of Maverick, his next door neighbors are in his network. People from your church, professionals who may have worked with your son or daughter in the past. Just a reminder with professionals, when they are attending network meetings, because this is a volunteer model, these would be people who would come to the network meeting and not charge to come to the meeting. My son Maverick has several attendants who are in his network, but when they come, they're not on the clock. You may have people who have always said they want to get to know your son or your daughter better, but have always felt awkward and have never really known how to go about making those overtures to get to know your kids better. And then you can also invite people to join the network who may share a common interest with you. You know, Jake in the Naruto network is really into anime, and maybe you would invite other people to join the network who share that interest with him. I want to go ahead and stop share just for a second and see everybody, and if I can hear from folks to see who you would think you would want to invite to join a network.
So if you raise your hand or if you turn on your camera, that will alert me that you want to say something.
So Cindy, why don't you get started? Who would be, just for Peyton, who would be maybe people that you would think of that you would invite to join?
We have a lot of close friends. We have a lot of, from coworkers to people that we've met along the way who have been teachers, like we've stayed friends with a lot of her teachers, past attendants that she's had, we've stayed in close contact with. So we don't have family here.
Mhm.
So now being via Zoom, we could probably invite some family members, but I think we would probably focus on people who are here around us.
Mhm.
Is probably where we would start.
Nice. I think Anne did a chat and she mentioned a couple people. Would you share those, Cindy?
Anne said 2 brothers, extended family, nieces, parents of others with disabilities. Elizabeth said my son's older brother and sister-in-law, his great aunt, his cousin, and his pastor at church.
And yeah, perfect. Perfect. Can you go back to what Anne said? There was one there that I thought.
2 brothers, extended family, nieces, parents of others with disabilities.
Yes, and parents with others of disabilities. That's a really good one too. There's kind of a deal. I'll be in your son's network if you'll be in my daughter's network. And who else? Who else has some they can share? What is something somebody can post? Oh, good. So Michelle Harrison was saying members of our church life group. Wonderful.
And again, you had a family of another person who had a child with autism.
Yeah.
So trying to kind of cross over, like you said, I'll help you. I'll be in your son's network. Will you be in mine?
Yes.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yes. Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to get back on the screen. Oh, good. Look at that. So Anne's sharing also. Can you read that, Cindy? You're on mute.
Babysitter who is still interested.
Nice.
So again, I think we all have people in our lives that would gladly step up and say yes. Like we've always talked about people who say, you know, I wish there was something I could do to help you. When you have a personal network, it's like, come on over now that you say that. I have something for you. You know, I have a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, I love that one with I always bring up this when you're walking down the street and you happen to bump into somebody you know and you have a little visit and you say, oh, we have to get together for coffee. And do you ever get together for coffee? No, you don't, because that's not how we roll. It's the same thing with people who say, oh, I wish there was something I could do to help. And I think most of us as parents, it's hard for us to even begin to wrap our heads around what help could possibly look like when somebody brings it up out of the blue. And so we never really ask for what that can be. But a nice thing about networks, when you start having network meetings, the people in the network start exploring that together. Well, how can we be helpful? And so I always like to make sure that we talk about identifying those people who may have offered to help in the past as being really good candidates for networks.
Okay. Yep, agreed.
Okay, let me get back into my. Okay, and we will have time at the end if we need to. Cindy, how late do you want us to go?
You can go to 2:45, and then we can leave 15 minutes for questions at the end.
Perfect.
So I hope everybody's thinking of questions. So Denise can take care of that at the end. So
yes,
thinking as she goes through the presentation and throw your questions in the chat box.
Yes. Yes. Oops. Okay. Who brought up siblings? I know there was a couple of you that brought that up. Siblings love networks. So you see up there in the top corner, you can see Lucas. And that is Lucas's little brother, Owen, with him. in that photograph. And then the 3 happy people in the center photograph, that's Jacqueline from the Just for Jacqueline network. And that is her sister, Katie, and her brother, Carter. And then there's my son, Maverick, with my daughter, Ava. That's quite a few years ago now, but I can never resist that photograph. Siblings love networks, and I'm going to tell you a little story about siblings and networks. One of our, another parent-to-parent colleague, Rosemary Alexander, I'm sure quite a few of you know Rosemary. Her son's network is called the WACOs, spelled WACOS for Waco. They are all from Waco, but they thought the WACOs sounded better for the network. So, because they are kind of wacky. But anyway, Will has a younger brother, Randall, also with Texas Parent to Parent now. And when the network was well underway, Rosemary had asked Randall if he would be interested in being Will's guardian. And at this point, Randall was in his earlier 20s, and he just did not want to think about that sort of responsibility, which is understandable, you know, in your early 20s. That sounds pretty daunting. So he said no, but over the years, he's been attending network meetings and has taken on more roles in the network and also more roles in supporting his big brother, Will. And he approached the network and said, yeah, I want to be a guardian. And the main reason that he felt comfortable to become a guardian was because he knew that the network was going to be a huge help and a huge resource to him as well as to Will. And I always love that story. So, invitation. Piece of cake, right? We got this. But do you think that's easy, Cindy? Or is it hard?
It's super hard.
It's okay. Asking for people to join a network is the #1 challenge that people have to starting a network. So you can either raise your hand or you can go ahead and type on the chat. Why do you think it's hard to invite people to join a network?
Because you feel like it's an imposition.
An imposition, yeah.
Right, because we know people have things going on, and you know, do they really want to take time out to make a commitment to something that they may already be overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Afraid of rejection is one that's going on there.
Elizabeth, yeah, that's a huge one. Fear of rejection. Who else? You guys are really great at typing through the chat room.
People would want an explanation of what they're coming to for a gathering at your home. Right?
Absolutely.
Not really sure what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Nicole said you're asking for someone to take on a responsibility that traditionally is a family responsibility. Mm-hmm. Ginger, whoa, they're coming in fast now. Ginger said lots to explain, I would assume. Anne said, I don't want to risk friendship, relationship if they say no, or if they say yes because they feel obligated.
Yeah. These are all really good ones. You know, and we've had a couple people also that they said, and I was surprised because it hadn't even occurred to me, for the parent to think about starting a network. For them, they were so overwhelmed that it just felt like one more thing to do. And they thought that was the last thing in the world that they needed was more work. It feels like work.
Agreed.
Yeah. Hey, Dora.
Anybody else?
Overwhelmed.
Yes.
Nicole, yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to put this plug in there. I love the concept of networks. But the reality is I'm a single parent. I work full time. I have lots of responsibilities. So quite frankly, it's very overwhelming to me as well. So I sit here and I know this stuff, and Denise keeps kind of gently nudging, saying, you can do this. We're here to support you. And the reality is I do know that there are people out there who will be willing to help. But so personally, I feel that overwhelmness. But many of the families that we talk to, they're so busy juggling everything. And they're like, it's just another thing. The concept, the reality of it is an amazing thing. We think everybody should have one, but we also understand that there are some barriers. And I have my own barriers, so I'm being real honest here. It is overwhelming to think about.
Yeah. And when we start meeting with families about starting a network, if they do decide to give it a try, we do spend a lot of time just exploring those things. Why is it so scary? You may invite some people to join the network and maybe they will be busy. And what is it going to be like for you if they do say no? And as we start talking about it and families start to see the possibilities of the network, some of their fears about taking that deep dive into the process start to dissipate a little bit, and it gets easier. Were there any more, Cindy?
Yes, Ginger just said, I'm still not clear on what individuals would do in the network, and you're going to get to that.
I am.
Just hold on there, Ginger. She's going to get to kind of what the expectations are.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get us back over there now onto the screen. So the first thing you do after you decide who you would like to invite to the network is we have something that we call an invitation meeting. And so envision yourself hosting an invitation meeting at your house. You've made a little list of the people that you want to invite, and we've sent out the invitations. And we have this invitation meeting, and everybody comes to your house, and you offer some snacks or maybe a meal. It's up to you. People mingle for 15 to 30 minutes, however long you decide. And then we all sit in a circle, and everybody at the invitation meeting, and they have no idea why they're there. Like you said, Ginger, they have no idea what a network is all about. So everybody introduces themselves, their name, and how they know. I'm going to use the name Helen as the name of the person at the center. Helen is the person we are starting the network around. So during the invitation meeting, we'll say, okay, everybody say your name and how you know Helen and her family. And everybody will do that. And it's really interesting just to hear all these different sorts of relationships that people have with Helen and the family. Some of the people may be Helen's friend. Some of the people may be Helen's mom's friend or dad's friend, or they may be a family member. And it's really exciting to see this varied group of people who come together to learn about what a network is. And then we jump into exactly that. Usually, I like to show that 6-minute video that you all watched at the beginning of this presentation and just explain kind of quickly what a personal network is. And then I think the next part, which is I think probably the most important piece of the meeting, is the family has the floor to talk about why they have decided to start a personal network for Helen. And it can be pretty emotional, as you all were thinking about your fears about asking people to join. Well, you've asked them, and here they are, and now you're going to talk about, something pretty personal why you're starting a network, and it can be kind of emotional for a lot of family members. And then we open it up to the group, to everybody who's been invited. And what I find a lot during these invitation meetings is it's very emotional also, so for the people who have been invited to this process, because you're probably going to find that a lot of people who come, they have wanted to be a resource. They have wanted to be helpful. They have wanted to be supportive, but they don't know how to do it. They have seen parents struggle. They have seen Helen struggle, and they don't know how to support them. And that's hard for family members as well. And it's really touching to watch people share just what it means to be in this room together, actually addressing this process of getting together. And the next thing we do is, to Ginger's point, is we have a little handout and it says who are network members, and it lays out a little bit of what the expectations are of network members. The main ones are, I'd say the top 5 commitments of network members are that you care about Helen and her family, that you are willing to make time to meet 4 times a year for a 2-hour meeting 4 times a year, to get to know the other members of the network, to get to know Helen better, and also to learn more possibly about Helen's disability, if that's what the network wants to focus on. Other expectations would be that if you want to leave the network, that you are willing to replace yourself before you leave the network, or you're willing to help network members to replace you. And I can't think of it over time, as the network keeps meeting. Another way network members could commit would be to maybe offer to research a particular topic. An example of that might be supported decision making. Maybe the family, Helen is 16 years old and they know that she's going to be 18 in a couple years, and they're trying to decide if they want to pursue guardianship or if they want to pursue some of those other options, but they're really not sure what the difference is and what might be a good choice. And so you may have a person in the network that volunteers and says, well, I'll go ahead and do that research. And I'll report back to the group at the next network meeting, and maybe we can all as a group decide what may be the best option for Helen. Other things that network members over time may offer to help research would be creative living options. That's where we are at with my son Maverick right now. He's 24 years old, and we're trying to think of creative living options for him in the next few years. Any number of things that the network may decide they want to work on over time. And then the final thing that you do before the invitation meeting adjourns is you want to go ahead and let everybody know that you will follow up with an email or another communication, text or what have you, to do that official ask. Do you want to join the network, or do you not want to join the network? And let them know that if it's really not a good time for you to be in the network, it's apparent that everybody in this room really cares about Helen and her family, and there's other ways where you can be to be in relationship with them. So and then that meeting's over with. So let's see. So you've had that meeting, yes, ma'am.
So Anne has a question, and her question is, do people invite for 5 years or so to be in the network rather than the rest of my child's life? So will you cover that in a little bit, or is now a good time to kind of talk about
I'm gonna cover that right now. That's a really good time to talk about it. So that would be something that we would do when I'm meeting with the family as we're planning before the invitation meeting. We would start chatting of asking family members, do you have an idea of what sort of commitment you would want from network members? the folks at Plan in Canada, they generally say they ask for a 2-year commitment from people to join the network. I think 5 years sounds really good. And that may also be something that you could ask individual network members that if you want to join, how long would you like to commit for? I think it's pretty open-ended. I hope that's helpful. I will say that none of Maverick's, the only person in Maverick's network who's ever left the network she was the youth pastor at Maverick's church, and she eventually left that church, and a Maverick eventually wasn't a youth anymore. So, so she did leave the network. So you have your invitation meeting and you send out the follow-up email, and people let you know whether or not they want to be in the network. And once you have a list of everybody who wants to be in the network, you schedule your first network meeting. And that's when the journey begins. Here is snapshots. As you can see, we talked about snapshots a little bit, founded in 2014. 6 years old this summer. I just want to point out also about this photograph. If you can see the woman in the back row in the red sweater, she's holding up a telephone. This person, this is Susan on the phone call. She's been attending network meetings via FaceTime ever since she moved to California. I think she was in Austin for the first 6 months of the network. But she's been attending every network meeting, and she participates in every network meeting. It's been very exciting over the last few years with advances in remote technologies now, that you can have people attending from all over the world via Zoom and via Skype. It's been very exciting to have people attend that way. But this is so something I have always really appreciated about Ivy, that's Sophie's mom, is she's always had a really nice celebration at every anniversary of the network. And I think for this particular anniversary, she got that big, beautiful cake in the foreground of the photograph. So, network meetings. Network meetings usually start off with socializing and eating. So with the invitation meeting, I ask families to go ahead and provide some sort of snack or food. But once you start having the official network meetings, I really do recommend a potluck meal. As we talked about, one of the key components of networks is that they focus on contribution. They also, in that same respect, they focus on giving parents an opportunity to let go a little bit of being in charge of everything. And I think that a potluck meal is a really beautiful way to begin that process for the parents of letting go, and also the process of everybody in the network of contributing to the well-being of the network by serving a meal together and eating a meal together. So that's how we usually start off with each network meeting. And then after you have a meal and visit a little bit, you take care of business. Every network meeting has an agenda. This here is a sample of the agenda for the very first official network meeting. So as you can see, the first thing at every network meeting, you would go ahead and still do introductions, say your name, and we usually go around in a circle, and people will say their name, and if there's anything new and interesting that they want to let other network members know about. And then when you start having network meetings, you want to develop the network. You want to name the network. I really do encourage networks to give the network a name, as opposed to saying Helen's Network or Peyton's Network or Maverick's Network. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is it gives a cohesive identity to the network itself. Usually the names are kind of tongue-in-cheek and fun and humorous if you want them to be. They give an identity to the network. And then the other thing also, it takes a little of the spotlight off of Helen, off of the person at the center, because sometimes that can be a little bit embarrassing for the person at the center. So a network is always a good idea. Another thing that you do during the first network meeting is you assign roles. You decide who's going to do what in the network. And the key roles in a network are the meeting organizer, the network facilitator, the note taker, and the communications person. And the facilitator, they're the ones that work the agenda. They make sure that the meeting starts on time and finishes on time. They make sure that everybody in the network has a chance to be heard if they want to contribute. And then they also work with the family or the person at the center to prepare the agenda. Let's see, the scribe, the note taker, is the person who obviously takes notes at the meeting and also prepares a meeting report and sends it out to everybody after the meeting if the network decides that that is something that they want to have in the network. And I won't go into the pros and cons of that right now, but some networks do decide to have meeting notes and some don't. You also decide on a communication tool. How are you all going to keep in touch with each other? Email, text, website, Facebook. Emails have always been really, really popular, though I will say in the last couple of years, texting seems to be the way most networks like to stay in touch with one another, or even more so than texting. There's apps out there such as WhatsApp or Slack, or I think there's quite a few more. Facebook seems to have fallen out of favor over the last few years. Regardless, you want to decide how you all are going to stay in touch with one another as a group, where the entire group is included in the conversation. And that's also very, very important for the last network role, which is the meeting organizer. The meeting organizer is the person who obviously makes sure that the network keeps meeting. You want to go ahead and set network meetings before you adjourn. You want to set the next network meeting. So that meeting organizer's role is the one who's going to, a month before the network meeting, sends out a reminder, 2 weeks before sends out a reminder, the day before sends out a reminder, whatever you all decide is the best way to get people to that meeting. And then that's also the responsibility of everybody in the network, is to make sure that the network does keep meeting. You want to decide how often you're going to meet, where you're going to meet, when you're going to meet. Some networks like to meet on weeknights in the evening. Most of the networks most of the families I've worked with, they like weekend network meetings. In terms of how often, I do recommend that a network meets at least 4 times a year for the first 3 or 4 years. 4 times a year. Maverick's network now meets 3 times a year, and I have heard of 1 or 2 other networks that only meet twice a year. So you all will decide how often that happens. And then also at every network meeting, I do like to maybe spend no more than 10 or 15 minutes getting to know the person at the center's services and supports. You may find that quite a few of the people who come to, who join the network, aren't going to have a clue of what an ARB meeting is. They're not going to know what a Medicaid waiver is. They're not going to know just a whole lot of what an OT is, how occupational therapy is different from physical therapy, just runs the gamut. Spend a little bit of time, but not the whole meeting. Like I said, you want to go ahead and schedule the next meeting before you adjourn, and then you adjourn the meeting. So that's kind of what a network meeting looks like. And this was just some photographs of what we do. This is a photograph up in the corner, the top left corner of the bullpen. That's Peter's network. Down there, there's always food is a big theme in a lot of network meetings. We do various activities. I think this particular activity that I'm writing on a dry erase board, we did an exercise of what's important to Helen versus what's important for Helen exercise. I think that's a person-centered thinking exercise that we find really useful. So here's just a little list of some things that networks do. Like I said, you meet for 2 hours, 3 to 4 times per year. Some networks, they want to focus on creating social opportunities. Networks are a really great place to help self-advocates learn how to identify where they need help from people and where they want to exert their independence more. Networks are great. Network members are great for offering guidance and mentorship to the person at the center. Lots of times, I think that's probably one of the areas that's really difficult for a lot of parents to let go. A lot of parents are really nervous about entrusting a lot of support for their son or daughter to other adults in the world. It feels dangerous. Well, a network is a really great place to create some trusted relationships. And then, of course, networks are a great place to have fun and to visit and get together. This is another Rebecca's network. Rebecca's mom attended the workshop at Parent to Parent, the Do-It-Yourself workshop in 2018 that I told you about. And they also, using the Do-It-Yourself materials, set up the network for Rebecca. And I talk to the mom every once in a while, Sabine, and it just sounds like this network is just going like gangbusters. I'm really excited for them. Phase 3, like I said, is maintenance and sustainability. You want to make sure that the network keeps meeting, not during the course of the parent's lifetime, but during the course of Helen's lifetime and Maverick's lifetime and Will's lifetime. Will's network now, I think, is 19 years old. It started when he was 20, and I think he just turned 39. I may be wrong about that, but it's been around for a long time. Maintenance and sustainability. Snapshot celebrates another year and overcomes network hurdles. I do want to say that, you know, sometimes networks, they get stuck and have to figure out how to be a cohesive group. Sometimes we as parents get disappointed in the network, really, or we question whether or not it's really there for our sons and daughters. And so sometimes network members have to address those things during network meetings. And Snapshots did just that at a network meeting last year. And it really made the network stronger than ever before. Just for Jacqueline launched, like we said, in 2015. Here's some photographs from when the network first launched in 2015. We were kind of wet behind the ears at that point. And here's pictures of Just for Jacqueline in 2019. Over the last 4 years, well, now 5 years, the network is 5 years old now. Katie, Jacqueline's younger sister, has become the lead facilitator for the network. Carter, down there in the bottom on the TV set, got married to Annie, and they attended the meeting via Skype. That's them on the television. But there, I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's still a lot of the same network members are still coming back. Katie has a boyfriend now, and when he came to the network meeting, he was so excited by the group, and he said, well, do I get to be in the network too? And so she was really excited about that. So time, you know, networks really get cohesive and get close with each other. time doesn't stop for networks either. This one was really exciting. The WACOs take charge in 2018. As I've said to you all, before you adjourn a network meeting, you want to make sure that you get the next network meeting on the calendar before you adjourn the meeting. And during this the meeting before this one, when they were setting the meeting, a couple of the ladies, one of the ladies in the network, Elizabeth, said, well, let's have the meeting on October 19th. And Will's parents, Rosemary and Bill, said, well, no, we can't do it on the 19th. We're going to be in Ireland on the 19th. And so a couple of those wily network members, they started whispering to one another, and they announced, we will have the meeting on October 19th. You go, Bill and Rosemary, parents, you have a good time on your trip, but we're going to have the network meeting without you. And that is what you're seeing photographs of here. And Will had the best time at this meeting. He was the hostess with the mostest at this meeting. He was so happy. This was his network. These were his people. And you can imagine as parents how comforted Rosemary and Bill were when they got back from their trip in Ireland to hear how successful and how productive this network meeting was. It was very exciting. This is another one, the Cavern Club keeps on rocking. They started in 2000, actually it's 2008. This is a typo, so it's 12 years old now. And it is still meeting. It's had a few new members added since then. Developing a healthy network takes years, and that's okay. Networks are a work in progress. This is a photograph of Coulter's network. It's called Coulter's Intelligence Agency. And this was exciting because when they were planning the network meeting, Coulter said, well, I really love rowing, and I want the next network meeting to be at the rowing center so I can show network members what I love to do. And so everybody came and learned how to scull. Over time, as networks mature, relationships deepen, and members become more invested in each other's lives. Coulter's Intelligence Agency, the CIA, founded 2017. Okay, so Cindy, you can either talk about this first or we can finish up with questions. I think I finished with a minute to spare. So I'll let you take it from here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just want to talk about the Transition Center of Central Texas. In September of last year, we were awarded a grant through Texas Council for Development Disabilities. That grant started off with the concept of we would help families develop networks for their person at risk of isolation, their child with a disability. And in the process of writing that grant, one of the things that we realized is kind of throwing the concept of networks out to families was overwhelming because families were already so overwhelmed with the day-to-day things that they had to do for their child, from funding to school to legal stuff to just keeping our head above water. So we decided that we would start with the Transition Center, where we could really focus in more on families and try to help families feel more supported in planning for transition for their child long term. So we serve 18 counties under the Transition Center. We do one-on-one meetings via Zoom, where we go through a transition inventory and start really talking to the family about do they have gaps? Do they have things that they haven't done yet? Are there things that they're super overwhelmed with that we can kind of help them navigate through? We also are creating an extensive resource bank where we can make referrals to. So really our goal is to really help families feel more supported and not feel as overwhelmed. And we hope from there, they may be ready to set up a personal network or join a TAG, a transition action group, to work with other families on similar goals. And so if that's something that you're interested in, or you know somebody that's interested in, you can, I put my email in the chat box earlier, you can reach out to me. We can go ahead and set up those meetings. We opened the center. It's really an extension of our Pathways to Adulthood Transition program. So we will actually do that with those one-on-one meetings with anybody, regardless of the county that you're in. I know that by Zoom, we have people from across the state of Texas, so we can offer that. But this grant is really focused on these 18 counties because, you know, Texas is a very large state. So we kind of decided to start small. And then eventually our goal is to have these centers in El Paso, down in Houston, because we know it's a big state and we can't do it all, and we want to make sure families are feeling supported. So there's kind of my little blurb on the transition center. I'll go ahead and put my email in here again, and then we can get to any questions. I will say, while I have the floor real quick, we will be sending evaluations after this session. We really appreciate your feedback. We know this is a different way to do Zoom. Okay, I'm going to talk louder, Zeke. We know Zoom is a different way to reach our families. So, you know, we appreciate everybody's patience. And please send the evaluations back when you get them. And Denise, let's take any additional. Oh, I see Michelle has a question about the 18 counties. If you go onto our website, I don't know them off the top of my head. If you go to our website, go under the Pathways to Adulthood, do the drop down and go to the Transition Center, it will give you the 18 counties. Travis, Williamson, it's just kind of, it goes all the way to San Antonio, all the way up to Waco, and then the smaller counties around it, if that helps. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at questions over here to see. No questions, just a big thank you, said Elizabeth. Lakshmi said, I'm still on the development stage of network for my son. Thank you.
It Lakshmi up in Fort Worth.
So then another question came in. So I think there's still.
Lakshmi, did you and I meet when I was up there?
She said yes.
Oh, yay. Good.
Yes, there's another great one, Michelle. The handouts from the presentation today are up on our website now, www.txp2p.org. On the right-hand side, you'll see the network presentation, and then right underneath, you'll be able to download the handouts. And another question is, so are these meetings brainstorming sessions for the disabled individual? So I think kind of clearing up a little bit more, we know that we're trying to have sustainability past our lifetime, right? We're also trying to help the family support the person with a disability. So is it fair to say that they're brainstorming sessions?
That's a really interesting way to put it. I imagine they could be. You know, I imagine there could be some parents or a person at the center who they just know they don't want to be isolated. That was my number one reason for getting started. I just kind of felt isolated and I needed to do something about it. But we don't really have a clue what the network can accomplish or what it would do. And so, yeah, so it could be for the first several meetings, why are we here? And what do we want to accomplish? But we also have some networks that they're pretty clear when they're getting started of some goals that they have. So one network that I'm working with a family now, we're just getting started. And the overarching goal of the network is the person at the center is 20. And he wants to be more independent. And so that's a goal of the network. How can the network help him to be more independent from his parents. And what is that going to look like? So that sounds kind of overarching and vague. So there may be some brainstorming involved there. But then there's also some that are more concrete, where he needs help to get a job. So we want some network members, not all network members, but maybe one or two who are interested in that, doing that, to help him find a job, help him learn how to interview for the job, those sorts of things. And that's pretty specific. So it can be a brainstorm, but there's also some people start with very clear, specific ideas of what they want the network to help with.
And I think that's also where, again, we have the model of you can do it yourself, and we give you all of the stuff, the tools to be able to do that. But if you're really not sure and you need somebody to really focus in, you want somebody else to do the asking, because I know that can be hard. That's where a network facilitator, their job is to come in, really talk to the family, find out about goals and dreams, and then start looking at who are the people in your life, in your child's life, that you might be, want to invite to come to the network meeting, and then kind of move from there. So that facilitator really is there to try and help it be really successful. Some families that have done the do it themselves, as you saw Denise put out there, they just took it and ran with it, and they have somebody who can facilitate it, and it worked really well. But for other people, they kind of need somebody kind of there encouraging them and kind of walking them through the process. So if that's something that would be helpful to you, reach out to us and reach out to me, and I can get you in contact with Denise.
Yeah, and also if you're interested, Cindy talked a little bit about tags, transition action groups, and we've actually done a couple of tags where the goal, what the group is going to be working on, is setting up networks for their sons and daughters in collaboration with one another. So they want to do it themselves, but they want to do it themselves with other families. And that's a really great way for everybody in the tag exchanges ideas of it. So they kind of may do some brainstorming of what do we want our networks to accomplish. So if you all are interested in that tag idea, you can get in touch with Cindy, and she can pass it along to me, and we can make something happen.
Yusha said she would like to get a network started for her son.
Nice.
I can get you in touch with her. So are there any other questions or things that anybody needs clarified, that you're still just not really sure of? Now's your time to speak up.
Or you can always, if you think of something after we're done, Cindy will let you know how to get in touch with me.
Or if you want a presentation to families, I had Michelle just came in and said she's she's a parent liaison for school district. So we will definitely get in touch, and so we can do presentations as well.
I know Michelle also. Michelle's in one of the tags, yeah.
Okay, sounds great. All right, any other questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you, Denise, for a wonderful presentation.
You're welcome.
Everybody, let us know if you have any questions, if you're interested in the Transition Center or doing one-on-one meetings, and please reach out to us and watch for those evaluations to come. And other than that, I think we're going to call it a day. Yay! Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you, everybody, for your time and for joining us. Stay tuned. We will continue to do our conference speaker series throughout the month of September. So watch our website. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Denise.